Hi, my name is Haley Isaak. I've been skating for around 10, 11 years now, and today I'm going to teach you how to kickflip. So kickflip is most of the time the first flip trick you're ever gonna do. All it is you pop, you flip the board 360 and then land on it. Simple as that. It's a pretty easy and simple flip trick, so let's get into it. So you can't just jump straight into learning the kickflip. You need to learn other tricks to build up some board control. So I would first definitely just learn how to push around on a skateboard. Make sure you're really comfortable with that, and then get all of your basic tricks down, like ollies. Ollies will obviously definitely help with this trick. And also just the 180s backside, front side. Learning pop shuffles are a good trick too, because it gets you comfortable with your board leaving your foot and then jumping back onto it. Just so it's not like an ollie where you're just going up and straight back down. Your board actually does something while you're not on it, and you have to actually jump back on it and just get comfortable with that feeling. Ollies, 180s, shove-its, and then you're ready to kickflip once you got those ones down. Yeah, you don't want to jump straight into learning a kickflip without learning the basic tricks before it, because you just have less board control. You have less of an idea of how your board is supposed to flip. Once you land the easier tricks before a kickflip, it'll make it so much easier, just because you're comfortable with riding on your board and getting used to how your board works, just the physics of how a skateboard is supposed to flip. And don't be discouraged if you do have those basic tricks and then you start trying kickflip and you're just not anywhere close to it. It's a whole different trick, it's a whole different feeling. It's gonna take some work, especially if it's your first flip trick. Yeah, it's definitely tough to get it first going, but take it day by day, step by step, keep working at it, keep progressing. You're gonna see yourself progress with this trick if you just keep trying it. I know it's hard at first because it is your first flip trick, but it will get easier as time goes on and you continue to practice. All right, so foot positioning. Let's go over your back foot first. Your back foot, if you know how to ollie, you should know how to ollie if you're trying kickflip, you just have it in ollie position. Just solid on the tail, right in the center of it, and be on the balls of your feet, because all you're doing is popping straight down and coming straight up off of it. So you don't want your foot turned in a weird way, you just want it straight on the board, perpendicular to the board. And for your front foot, you want your front foot maybe half an inch behind the front bolts, and you want it to be angled maybe about 45-degree angle towards the nose of your board. You don't want it just perpendicular like your back foot, just straight on the board. You want it angled a little bit, so it'll make it a lot more easier for your foot to roll off the side of the board and flick it. Also for your front foot, maybe even have your heels hanging off on your heel side of your board, just so you don't have to slide your entire foot off of the board when you're first learning how to kickflip. It makes it a little bit easier to get that flick. And also you do want to be on the balls of your feet on your front foot, just like your back foot. Practice steps. So instead of just going straight for a kickflip, you can do some practice steps that'll definitely make it a lot easier, especially if you've never attempted this trick before. So what you should do is just sit on your board, have all your weight on your tail like you would for a drop-in position, but you're just on flat ground. And then with your front foot, you just practice rolling your ankle and then flicking off of the side of the board. That is a key component to the trick that you want to get down, and it makes it easier to get that motion of your ankle rolling and flicking off the side of the board if you're just standing there on your board and not trying to do it in the air and put the whole kickflip together all at once. You want to break it down into parts. So just stand there in a drop-in position, tail on the ground, nose in the air, and just practice rolling your ankle off the side of the board. And you don't want to roll it straight off the nose. You don't want to roll it straight off the side of your board where your heel is. You want to aim for the concave, right where your board starts to turn into your nose, in that pocket right in the corner, and just practice your flick right there. And then after you do that for a little bit, make sure you feel comfortable with that ankle roll. Then you can try just landing with one foot. Just pop in a kickflip, flipping off the side, and then land with maybe just your front foot first. And of course, it's not gonna work right away, so you're gonna have to experiment with it and just figure out what works for the trick and what doesn't, and then just try to land it with one foot. Land it with your front foot first, and then after you can land it with your front foot, give it a try with your back foot. Just flick off the side and land on the board with your back foot, and that will definitely help you get more comfortable with the flick and then actually trying to land a kickflip as a whole. So when you're putting it all together, after you have mastered all the practice steps, you have your foot in the feet positioning I told you earlier, and all you want to do is bend down. Make sure that your shoulders are parallel with the board. You don't want your shoulders to be open up towards the front of where you're going. You want them to just be parallel with your skateboard as you're bending down and coming up. So when you're bending down and coming up to pop, it's kind of like an ollie when you're popping it in that sense. You just pop straight down with your back foot and then bring it straight up after you give it a nice solid pop. Can't have a wimpy pop or else it's gonna be hard to get a flick off of that. So make sure you're doing a nice strong pop, just straight down, and then you bring your foot straight up so it allows some time for your board to flip under you. You can't pop the board and then keep your back foot down on the ground because then you're not gonna be able to land it if your feet are not above your board while it's flipping. So let's move on to the front foot. Once you pop down with your back foot, your front foot starts to come up with the board. You have to jump up while the board is popping up. And then that's when you use that ankle roll technique that you should have practiced and now are very comfortable with. That is what you implement in this step, and you just roll your ankle and roll your foot so your toes flick off the side of the board, right in the concave like we were talking about earlier. Once you flick your front foot off the board and it's spinning under you, you just make sure that you suck your feet up. You don't want to just kick them out and then leave them out in front of your board. You want to flick out, bring your feet up, and then allow the board to flip under you with enough time for the board to rotate fully and then land completely back on it. It might be scary to land and commit to your first flick trick at first. That's why the practice steps are there, so you can kind of get comfortable with that and just land with one foot. So if you find yourself trying kickflips after the practice steps and you're still scared to do it, one, you could either just commit to it, or you could go back to the practice steps to make sure you really have a solid foundation before getting right into it. So when you pop the board, you flick it, you let it spin under you, and you don't want to just let it land on the ground. You want to make sure that your back foot is there. It's hovering above the board, waiting it to flick and come around full circle. And that's when you put your back foot down and you let your board hit your back foot so it catches it, so it doesn't overflip. And then that's when you want to set the board back down on the ground. So when you're first doing kickflips, you might want to try them stationary without any speed, just so it's not as scary when you're first learning them and trying to land on them with speed. So you can just you can set your board in a crack and try kickflipping like that, just a crack in a sidewalk, or you could even do it on the carpet and try that, because that way if you do end up falling, it's not as painful. And when you're learning out on carpet, it might be kind of hard to pop off of, but that's why I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it on the carpet. You could also, this is what I did learning kickflips, I had a little bit of speed when I was learning them, just pushed a little bit and then would kickflip into the grass, just so I could get a nice solid pop off of the concrete, but then land in the grass, the soft grass, where if I fell, it wouldn't hurt as bad. So you could try it that way, try to kickflip into the grass, and then once you're comfortable with that, or at least comfortable committing to that, you can try it on concrete. And once you try it on concrete, whatever works for you with a little bit of speed or not moving at all, in my opinion, it helps to just be moving just a little bit, because it's kind of hard to be confined in an area where you're not moving at all. So I would recommend just a little bit of speed and then try and kickflip on concrete. Just go for it. One big common problem that I see beginners make when they're first learning how to kickflip is instead of kicking out in front of you, they kind of do a little ollie up and then just try to flick straight down instead of flicking straight out in front of you, in front of the nose of your board. You want your foot to just go straight out. You don't want it to donkey kick down, because that way it's gonna be hard to get a flick off of that one. So just make sure when you're bending down and popping up, you're flicking on your way up for a kickflip. You're not ollieing and trying to kick down. Another common problem I see beginners make when they're first learning how to kickflip is that instead of keeping their shoulders parallel with the board, they open up their shoulders front side so that their shoulders turn and the board isn't under them when they go back to land on the board. So you can flip it like that. You're gonna flip a kickflip, but if you open up your shoulders, you're not gonna be able to land back on the board because you're not in line with your skateboard. So make sure that your shoulders are parallel when you're bending down and jumping up and then coming back down, because you want your feet to land back on your board as well. Another common problem would be over and under flipping. I see a lot of people overflip the skateboard skateboard, and if you're over flipping the skateboard, maybe just try a little bit less flick and then you'll get it. And if you're under flipping it, you want to make sure that you're giving it a really solid pop and then flicking it harder than you think you would. Another issue with learning your first kickflip is commitment issues. A lot of people are understandably scared to land back on their board after they flip it because it's a whole foreign new concept to them. So it's going to take some getting used to, at least jumping back on the skateboard. So if you're scared to do it, it's understandable. But a way to combat this, you could hang on to a fence, table, a bar, maybe about waist height. You hold on to that and then just do a kickflip while holding on to something for some assistance. And once you got that down, you can maybe hold on to it less and less, maybe just have it there just in case you fall. Just work on kickflips with an assistant, whether that be with a fence or maybe even with someone's hand, and then you can get into doing it all by yourself and just work your way up from there. And that is pretty much how to kickflip. I hope you guys can go out there and work on your kickflips and maybe even land your first one. Well, thanks guys for watching. My name, like I said earlier, is Haley Isaak. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and it's just my name, Haley Isaak. And thanks everyone for watching.